everybody? Welcome back to the Paradise Podcast Network. My name is Scott Borgstrom. We have Cory, Paradise, and Alfredo Garyboy joining us today, as usual. How we doing today, guys? How we doing?
Doing
Yes.
all right. Yes. That's not how that
Yeah.
works. That's
I
my
know.
thing, and that's not how that works.
Dude, I've
That's not how any of
appropriated it,
this
man.
works.
It's actually a part of me now.
Wow.
I would venture to say I have successfully vultured it from you in
So
my
would you say a
circle
lot
of
has happened for
friends.
you within the week?
No, this has been going on for months, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's like a slow process, right? Like a caterpillar.
no, it was instantly like my friends would be like, "You want to go here or here?" And I'd just be like, "Yes." And obviously in my head I think of Cory, but in their heads, anytime someone does that shit, they're like, "Okay, Alfredo." So it's got fucking layers. You
First
know what
off,
I'm
my
Well,
saying?
I'm glad to contribute to your personality in lieu of
Of
mine.
course, I'm just like America, man. I'm a melting pot. I'm a welting pot, or I'm a melting pot. Now
you
I
decide.
fixed it
Those are
anyway, and
those are severely different
call it
things.
out.
Like,
But I'm a melting pot. I'm a
oh no.
conglomeration. I'm a product of my environment. And Cory, you were a big part of that environment.
Was I a good influence when your mom talked about me behind closed doors? Was I considered a good influence or a bad influence?
Yes.
There we go. I think you got your answer. Oh my
Fuck
goodness, you
you,
guys are turning into jokers right in
He
front of me.
crumbles. Society?
dude. That stuff was gnarly. Like the laughter in this is, the Joker laugh is generally pretty like it's hysterical, but there's like I don't know,
This one's
like
like,
there's life behind it. But this one is like
oh,
a choking. This is like
I was gonna say this one's like sad.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, the
You
whole
you
movie
feel
can be
bad.
sad too, right? Like, I think it just
Mm.
reflects the character. It's just almost like a
What
sad
I
existence,
movie,
think,
right?
well,
Scott?
It would be Joker 2019.
no, not the character, the movie.
I said Joker 2019. I separated it from the character.
Mm,
See, by adding the date of the movie it came out, right? It's like Sonic 06, right?
mhm,
Yeah, you following
mhm,
with me?
mhm.
Are you
Because
guys
I'm
good
Or
not.
at
like
that
God, or
So
like
stuff?
God of War 2018. Dude, I keep thinking God of War came out 2016, man. It did not.
It did not.
It did
no, it
not. It
didn't.
came out
The Joker
2018.
did come out in 2019. So
Yeah, but
that
this
being
is
the
a
movie
this
we're
is an
talking about.
episode on God of War, dude. We're a gaming
I
podcast, all
think
right?
you need to
Can't you tell by
reread the
the
title
intro?
here.
At this point.
Isn't the
I
intro
think you need
chip?
to reread the title here today.
Yeah, wow. Why don't you get a beef chattel to go, huh?
A what? I don't even know what that is.
Scott, do you want to explain to Cory what beef chattel is?
Oh, did you have that yesterday? Was that part
Yeah,
of the
it's
culinary like exhibition you had yesterday?
yeah, of the
Yeah,
stakeout we had yesterday.
literally stakeout, like steaks out,
Yeah.
steaks out, forks up, tummies hungry. Hotel Trivago.
And that's how I felt when I watched the Joker.
Your
Oh
tummy
man.
was hungry.
The marvelous movie. This is the third time that I saw this movie,
hmm Well, okay.
and
So my question to you. Sorry to interrupt, but my question to you, because you've seen this 3 times already.
yep,
Um, has
I
this
have.
movie given you like a different take, or has this movie sort of like
Well, let's
changed
just
the
say I
way?
think we live in a society.
Ooh, okay. More. Tell me more. Tell me
Uh,
more.
I don't know. I think it's just one of those movies that's really good from beginning to end. Like I felt like they hit a tone really well, and outside of like a handful of scenes, like and maybe we'll get into it unless we want to get into it now. But there's one scene in particular that like the first time I viewed it in theater, watching it on the big screen, I went, "What the fuck?" Like this was an executive decision for sure because this is
Mhm.
like the movie doesn't feel like this at all. But it was that scene when he's walking down the stairs and he's finally like liberated. He has become the Joker, and
Mhm.
it's like, and it's like, whoa, what? Like it defies all the rest of the tone and the rest of like the music in the film, and it
Mhm.
goes to like this very like I don't know, very on the nose kind of thing, and
Yeah.
that was the
Would you
only
say
scene
would you
that
say is the moment that he seizes that his life is a comedy? Not that he realizes it, but just where he embraces it, where he's
uh
like, "My life
I don't
is a
know.
comedy."
That's an interesting idea.
Mhm.
Uh, I think there's like several points in the film for sure that like are very like this is where he opens up, or like this is where he realizes everything that he's had has been there, and now he's finally making that jump to becoming the Joker. Like in the scene in the bathroom is what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Um, After he shoots those two boys and then runs into the bathroom, that's like a very like metamorphosizing scene, like coming into his own skin.
Mhm.
So I think you could say it there. But yeah, th- you know,
Would you say that's where he purges his old personality, his old persona? He's no longer
yeah,
Arthur.
I think the bathroom scene is what like in the minds of the makers, I think that's what that scene is supposed to represent is is him shaved. Because do we want to get into it? We haven't really even talked about the film or anything about it. We're just kind of jumping into the like
That's
10
how we
foot
do it,
deep
man.
end
We
right
fly by
now.
the seat of our pants. I'm just kidding.
Well,
Do you want to introduce the movie, Scott, before we go any
Uh,
further?
yeah, sure. So Joker is basically the origin story of Batman's famous arch rival and evil nemesis, the Joker. If that wasn't obvious by the title. But previously, before, I don't think Joker's ever had like a true explanation about his name, where he was from, or his like past. And this is a very unique way of telling it. And it starts out with the lead actor Joaquin Phoenix playing a mentally ill person taking care of his mom, right? In a pretty shitty neighborhood in Gotham,
yeah,
right?
I already want to stop you because I'm
Yeah.
already, this is just something I want to voice, but I'm very
Uh-huh.
curious how your take on it is because
Mm.
I saw this with Alfie. So, like,
Mhm.
Alfie only got to filter this movie so much before it was tainted by my incessant talking about it at the time. Like, I'm
Right.
sure your view of it is similar, to how I viewed it too, especially
Mhm.
because like when I saw it with you, it was the second time I saw it, and then when I watched it a third time, I watched it with you,
Mhm.
Scott. So I've watched it with a bunch of people, and it's one of my favorite films. But I'm
Mhm.
very interested to see how you've kind of like how you view the Marvel or like the DC universe and how you
Mhm.
like how it synthesizes to how you kind of I don't know process this film
Right.
because
I
in the
mean,
research I did for it,
mhm.
it's kind of interesting some of the things you just said and how it relates. But
Mhm.
I'm very interested to see where it goes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm gonna start off, just after the brief summary at the beginning, because I don't want to spoil this movie too hard, but there are gonna be spoilers in this movie, right? I kind of want to leave people with a little taste of it if you haven't seen it. But watching the movie and kind of like assessing it right after, my first initial like surface level reaction was that it's it is a telling of someone finding their own way in life, and whether it be like, oh, through failed attempt, failed attempt, and then out of nowhere, oh, hey, you finally got your moment, right? Granted, it's not traditional in any way. DC is definitely taking a lot more darker tones in their movies compared to their rivals in the comic book industry, Marvel. Right, where Marvel is more upbeat, happy. Oh, there's always a good ending. There's always a good ending for the hero of the movie, right? And this one does technically have a good ending for Joker. He
Well, you
finds
want to
he
know something
finds.
interesting?
Hmm,
So the one of the producers for this movie, I don't know if you
uh-huh.
watched the credits or did any research. One of the producers of this movie is Bradley Cooper, and he was talking about this film in particular, talking about working with Joaquin Phoenix. One of the things he mentioned is that the director of this movie,
Hmm.
um, which I should know this. Watch this, Todd Phillips. That he came to Bradley Cooper and he had this idea for a darker alternate universe, like an alternate DC universe that
Hmm.
starts with the Joker. And this was mentioned in like in passing of this uh like behind the scenes special. It was so quick you can miss it, but he said that it was like the start of
Hmm.
this darker universe that begins here with the Joker, and it's
Hmm.
which I was blown away. I didn't even know Bradley Cooper was a producer. Honestly, that was kind of like whoa, look at that.
Yeah, yeah, that's surprising. That's surprising. But I mean, the more you go deeper into it, the more I end up just feeling like he got dealt an incredibly bad hand. As a character, he the Joker as a character, he just one thing after another. Just no happy moment is given to him. And eventually it does take a toll, and he just snaps. And the whole movie, I'm just like, well, things get better, right? He goes to meet that neighbor girl, right? Oh, it's just in his imagination, right?
Well, let me ask you something, Scott.
Yeah.
Did knowing that the character is the Joker,
Mhm.
how much did you really believe it was gonna get better? Did you really like what I want to know your thought process, I guess is what I'm
Okay,
saying. Because
so
I can't say like, did you really believe that without sounding
mhm,
like a condescending asshole, but
mhm. So here's
I
the thing.
want to know
Here's the thing.
what you mean.
Right. So here's the thing. The movie, it's named the Joker. You've seen the staircase scene like we were talking about. Of him dancing, and you've obviously seen the Murray scene where Joker obviously fucking kills him, right? But the
Obviously.
whole movie does a great job of going, okay, well, maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance. Maybe. What if? Maybe we give him this small brief. Maybe he feels better. Maybe we give him this. We give him something, right? Let's give him the comedy scene at the the comedy club. We won't show the actual dialogue past a certain point, and we just show him with his arms open and the camera's like the lights are towards us, right? We leave
Mhm.
that to fill in the imagination, right? And then we shatter it down on Murray, right? We'll show Murray making fun of him. you know it does a great job of trying to give him this moment and then breaking it down even more. I feel
Okay.
and I genuinely wanted him. I kept rooting for him. I was like, come on, you can, there is a good moment. There's a good moment
So
somewhere, right?"
so you feel or I guess why do you feel you empathized with him like or sympathized? Do you feel
Hmm.
you like what why did you feel bad for him knowing what he becomes and
Hmm.
in a sense, like, did you feel that his character was vindicated in the sense of like, well, no wonder he's the way he is. Look at all he went through,
Hmm.
or do you think that like, do you think it was enough to justify like not feeling like, well, he should have rose above it. He could have been a better person. There was
Hmm.
more he could do, or were you like, nah, man?
Hmm. It definitely is more of like a sympathy thing, I would say in my case, where the whole time I'm just like, oh, I feel bad because people are taking advantage of him. You know,
Hmm.
like when Alfred gave him the gun. I think that was his name, Alfred the clown, right? In the dressing room, he gave him the gun in the bag, right?
Right.
Um, you know, that I believe that was him making fun of him, right? Or him making like just waiting for a chance to, make fun of him or put him in that situation where he gets fired, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but you can tell people just are there to make fun of him. They aren't there to cut him that same slack, right? And the only person who cuts him that slack is the girl in the elevator, Sophie, and he tends to hyper fixate on that a ton. You know, and it does make you root for that. It pulls on your heartstrings a little. This movie does. If you do feel a little more sympathetic than I would say some other people, it the movie does pull on your heartstrings. And wants
Do
you to
you
go for the
think
better.
so? Do you think that the city failed him? Do you think that like the environment he was around didn't provide him the resources that he needed to be able to
Hmm.
avoid snapping? To avoid like, do you think he was just pushed and pushed to the brink over and over and over again?
Hmm.
And like, what do you think pushed him? Like, who? If you had to point the finger, if you had to say, "There's a Joker out there now, and it's your fault," where would
Hmm.
you point the finger?
Oh goodness. A part of me wants to point it towards Murray, right? Because ultimately he's the one that he like Joker kind of realizes, well, my idol treats me like shit now, so the finger
But
wants to be pointed to
but
Murray, but it's not his
yeah,
fault completely. You know.
okay.
I
Why?
think I
Well,
think that's an interesting jump to Murray because
Hmm.
I
yeah,
feel like
because
I
if
feel like
anything,
Murray is like
Murray's the end goal. Yeah.
well I no
Like I
I feel
said, it.
like
Mhm,
Murray a is not an operator in any of this. Like
mhm,
he's roped into it at the end of this. Someone idolizes him to the nth degree in an
mhm,
unhealthy way.
mhm,
That's on
yeah,
him.
like the
But
whole
that's not on him. That's
childlike
on
fantasy, like the father
yeah.
figure fantasy,
mhm,
that's 100% on him, and that's yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because there's a parallel to that level of infatuation, that he had, and, like, the way that sometimes less mature guys will, envision being with a woman, and they
mhm,
kind of put them up on a pedestal, and then, like, they kind of build up in their head what it could be like, and you spend so much time in that fantasy realm instead of just going and talking to her and, maybe get rejected, maybe it works out that if anything ever does come of it or if it doesn't meet your expectations, it's on you. Like, you spend all this time building it up and then, you wasted time not making it happen. And then when it doesn't go your way,
mhm,
like when it's not your little fantasy realm, like you want to blame everything around you or you want to blame her. Like I don't know. I have a hard
mhm,
time sympathizing with that aspect, but like yeah, the scene where he gets kicked around by the kids is awful. Like
mhm.
not awful. I think it's done really well cinematically, but that's probably the scene where I'm like, come on, guys, he doesn't deserve that. He's just doing his job. Like he
Yeah.
broke his sign. He's gonna have to pay for that.
Mhm,
I think the scene when he's starting to piece it all together. That was when I watched it this time around. There was like um I just had in my head there was one scene in particular I watched and I felt really particular about it differently, but this time around the other thing I really picked up on was when he was starting to piece things together and realize like everything nothing's true.
mhm,
He can't he's basically in this story there is no choice for him to not become the Joker.
mhm.
It's
Of
like
course.
Mhm.
he searches for his mother or he reads the letters that his mom sends to Wayne or to the Waynes and like is told one thing and fully buys it. If fully is like this is the reality. And then he goes to
Yeah.
the hospital and gets the records and reads those and now that has to be the reality. And
Mhm,
it's
Yeah, he
like
really doesn't question any narrative until he's presented a different one with just a little bit like with just enough evidence that it turns his whole world upside down. So he has a very volatile level of understanding
mhm.
where it's almost like two things can't be true at the same time in a
yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Um like every factoid exists in its own universe. He's practically at least the way that the story is shot, because I think there's something to be said about the kind of um what's the word for it? The sort of like the planning out, the level of like damn, there's a word for it and now I can't think of it, man. There's a it's almost like
Well,
he formulates plans and executes them, not necessarily like he stumbles through them, but in the end, he still accomplishes the goal. He's like,
Mhm,
"Oh, I need to go to this place and, like, find out who my mother is," you know?
yeah.
And,
Yeah, he's competent enough to
yeah, competency, that was the word.
mhm,
like
Thank you.
to follow the thread, to be like the armchair detective to his own life
Yeah,
story.
and that almost feels fantastical. That,
uh-huh,
like the journey is almost the purpose itself. The purpose is for him to go on the journey, and
mhm,
it just so happens that they're cliffs. Like he goes, he does the thing he's meant to do,
Yeah.
and it flips the script on his entire
And
understanding, I feel like.
no matter what happens, he's always started life like in the nest made on the side of the cliff. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
like in his world, there was never a way for him to climb up. Like there was never a way for him to get out of where he was. He's always gonna have to walk off the cliff to start, to start anything.
Hmm.
And that's what, goes back to what you were saying, Scott, is like you watch the movie, it's the most notorious villain ever made. It's the Joker. Like you know who it is, whether it's, you know, um Mark Hamill, or whether it's who's his name from The Shining?
Uh, ooh,
Knack Knack Jickelson.
Knack Jickelson. Knack Jickelson, if he's in here, if you've seen him, or if it was all the way back in the Adam West, it doesn't matter. You know
mhm,
who the Joker is. You know how he's supposed to act. He's a very two-dimensional character. Everybody understands him. And to like to be able to come in and change the game with it, he changed the format of it, of who he was as the Joker, how it
mhm,
was presented, gave him a story, gave him an actual background, gave him a name, Arthur Fleck. This was pretty big movie to take the reins of, pretty big
mhm.
name to try and work with. And I think Joaquin Phoenix did a great job, personally.
No, he did a stellar job. You
His
know,
acting was fantastic. The direction was crazy. Well, not crazy good, but it was good. It was very
mhm,
well done. I
Everything
think,
carried a flavor, like it all had the same tone, you know?
yeah,
It felt
mhm,
like you were in this fictional world of Gotham City. It felt like it was a place that, you could reach out and feel that.
mhm,
it felt like the setting, you know, like I was, but the city itself didn't. I don't want to say it like that. I almost feel like Gotham was like the name Gotham was meant to be a placeholder for anywhere. Like it could happen anywhere. It could happen to you. Like that that's kind of borrowing a lot from the Killing Joke, how like all it takes is one bad day, you know?
Mhm.
mhm,
Uh
mhm.
but I feel like
Which
that
he said, did you catch that? There's a uh when he turns around, it's when he's sitting in the apartment of the woman, and she comes in and she's startled, and he turns to her, he's like, I had a really bad day.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
I did.
that's
Yeah.
what he says. I had a really bad day. And I can remember sitting in theaters going,
Oh,
oh,
you probably
oh,
pointed
oh,
that out to
oh.
me.
That was
Mhm.
but yeah.
I mean,
I
They
think
it's.
yeah.
I was just gonna say it's a fantastic movie all around. And Joaquin Phoenix isn't the only actor. Granted, he's a stellar performance in this movie. Very stellar. Sells the role of the Joker so incredibly well. I don't know anyone who could have pulled off this specific movie like he could have. Right.
I lost my
But you.
train of thought, and I just remembered it, but it was
uh
that you shouldn't feel bad if you sympathize with him.
mhm,
Is that like that's what this film is supposed to do? It's a there's a if anything, it's supposed to make you feel for this person, even though you're not supposed to. Like,
mhm,
who the Joker is. You're not supposed to like this guy.
mhm,
He kills people, but it doesn't matter because you get to see his like they humanize him in a way that is so
Yeah, like
grounded.
that's what I wanted to talk about was like when
mhm,
people refer to, other people as like as monsters, but like it's to like it's almost like what they have to tell themselves, and do in their heads to remove humanity from a person who did something awful or evil.
no, of
But
course.
at the end of the day, they are a person. People are like it's like people refusing to acknowledge that other people, real people that could be, their neighbor or their dentist or their fucking barista. Like it's like they want to fucking not. acknowledge that it's those people around them that could be capable of such vile acts, you
Mhm,
know?
It
mhm.
could
Now
be
granted,
any of
Not
I
them.
not
don't think
Gary
in the
though.
movie I don't think in the movie Joker did anything vile or disgusting. Like he killed people,
Until the
but
end.
yeah, like he killed people, but
There
it's not
was
like he was
that. Like,
he wasn't macabre about it though,
Mhm,
yeah,
which doesn't get
yeah.
like that is evil, yeah. Macabre not so much, but it's not like he was conniving. It one could argue the first one was maybe in the
No, the first one
but
was definitely like
when
a
he chased the other kid
self-defense.
down, it was like okay, yeah, it's not self defense anymore.
Yeah. Yeah,
mhm.
when the kid runs away for sure. But like
Fucking headshot.
but when he kills Arthur Murray on the show though, that's a
Mhm.
very that's the definition in a weird I guess can you say it's the definition of a planned murder like homicide because there's the scene of him before the show sitting in his apartment and he's like has the Arthur Murray show on and he's like acting out coming onto stage,
Yeah.
and he sits down and answers some of the fictitious questions that they would ask him and then he like would plan to blow his own brains out and then as it plays out it turns into him turning it on to Arthur and it or
Mhm.
so it's
Murray.
like yeah the
Murray's
Murray
his
Murray
first name.
Franklin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but it's just kind of like even that sequence of events though it doesn't feel wrong, it feels like the escalation of things. At that moment when he was in the show, he was planning on killing himself, you
Yeah.
know? And then when he gets to the show and he keeps going, it turns
Builds
from,
himself up.
yeah, it turns from, I don't want to kill myself. I want to
Mhm.
kill this dude who's the
Yeah.
embodiment of everything that I hate, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
He
it's this
projected it.
natural building.
Mhm. So
Can
then wait,
Yeah.
wait. So in the dressing room scene, right after
Hmm.
he meets Murray, right? Murray closes the door. Joker, he's staring at the mirror, right? And then he goes to his chair and he, pulls out his gun and tries to shoot and it blanks. Um,
Well, not
that,
blank. It just clicks. Thing that
yeah,
it clicks. Okay.
yeah, yeah, it clicks. Sorry. To me, that feels like the moment of like, well, this is my last chance. This is if it happens, then hey, it happened, right? To me, that feels like okay, well, surprise. But I don't know where I was going with this. It's just I don't know. He had this whole plan, and then he sat down in the dressing room. I wanted to get your take on that because that one kind of came at me at left field
What do you mean? He sits down in the dressing room
and
and
tries to kill himself with a gun right before going on the show.
mm, I didn't actually even take anything from that. I didn't think about that. Maybe maybe that is like the final straw and he finally embraces it because
Hmm.
I do feel like when he goes on to the show
Hmm.
that is the moment that it's like hello everybody, this is every part of the Joker, this is the Joker,
Hmm.
you
No,
know
and of course, and I do agree with you on that. It's just
so yeah.
I don't know if if they intended it for it to be like oh maybe he was just nervous and this was the only way he could calm himself or like whatever have you. And I want to get you guys' thoughts on that because it kind of came out of left field for a guy who has a plan to, do
Yeah.
it so
I
grandiose, right?
I agree though. I think the plan and I think that just goes to show or to reassure the audience like the viewer
Hmm.
that the plan was for his brains to go everywhere, not Robert De Niro's. I
Right,
Mm.
think I think
right.
that reaffirms what Corey and I had speculated or
Hmm.
at least it provides additional um like evidence for that to be potentially the case cuz I feel like anything that we hypothesize or speculate has to be like taken with a huge grain of salt because of how unreliable, you know,
Hmm.
Arthur is as the narrator.
Do you want to
Right.
know what the movie makers say?
Hmm.
Ooh.
So there was an interview with Joaquin Phoenix where somebody asked him like what is the what's the meaning of the film, And
Mhm.
before I answer this, what do you guys think? Like, what is the film trying to say? Like, what is your takeaway? What's the overall thesis at the end of the
Gary the
day?
clown is a nice guy.
Gary.
You've done nothing wrong to me, Gary. You've done nothing wrong to me. um, Alfie, did you want to go first? Because I'm still kind of like trying to
I'm
piece it in my head.
Well,
I'm
do
kind
you
of caught
think there's a
between
thesis?
I'm kind of caught between yeah, is there even a meaning? If I had to try to really pull one out,
Mhm,
um it's just that it's not so cut and dry, Like there's not a very like concrete statement that
Mm,
I feel is made at least. Like I think maybe it casts a mirror to, the audience, like to the
mhm,
viewer and like says like, how have you treated the lower class? Like how have you treated somebody with a disability? Like how do you view these people that like for them just being is a struggle? Like Arthur carries cards that says please don't mind my laughter like it's a condition, you
mhm.
know?
how many people returned the card too?
I don't think that lady did on the bus because it does say return the card,
Yeah,
right? She kept
please
it,
kindly return the card.
and she
And
kept it. I caught that.
when I was watching it this time, I was reading, I was going like, please kindly return the card. It's kind of like
Mhm.
one of those weird rules you see at like a just some random shop that's like, like don't kick the the door open. And it's because that one
Yeah.
dude put his foot through the door. This feels
Mhm,
like one of those like please kindly return the card because somebody like chucks it back in your face. You know what I mean? Like
Oh
mhm.
yeah, so you think kindly was like literal, like return it nicely, please.
yeah, like think
Yeah,
about all
because
the
I mean, a lot of the
situations you have to give
situations.
them the card.
Yeah, and you're already probably taking it as like, "Oh, yeah, you're laughing at me?" Right? Like, "Oh, you're making fun of me? Like, what's so funny?" Like, every other person has basically gone, "What's so funny, dude?" You know? And the card is basically saying, "Please return." The nicest possible way.
Y-
So I can get why they had to specify that, right?
Don't you
I
find it
can
also
also see
kind of?
his
Oh
thought
yeah.
process being like they'll see I'm just different. They see that it's not my fault and they'll leave me alone. And more often than not, they don't leave me alone.
Mhm.
Well, from the filmmaker's mouth,
Okay.
I'm not gonna actually play the audio, but the quote basically was that in this interview with Joaquin Phoenix, somebody asked him like, "What is the ultimate? Like, what's the meaning? Is there a meaning?" Like, I'm sure when you were showing this and premiering it to your friends and family, they all they want to know what the meaning of the film is. What is the whole purpose?
Mhm.
And and both the Phillips, the director, and Joaquin Phoenix both say is like there is no meaning. Like there is none. Like that's the
Mhm.
whole point. Is like you can come into it and you walk away with different meanings, and it tells
Yeah.
you different things. Like society did this man dirty, and then you watch it again, and or somebody else watches it and they see different things. And it's like that was the purpose wasn't to make a film that said something about society or said something
Mhm.
about us. That wasn't the way that they were approaching it. They were approaching it from the point of like Todd Phillips, the director, likes villains. He just likes a good villain. He likes what makes a villain tick. And
Mhm.
so his basis was when he was writing the film was to write it for Joaquin Phoenix. Like he wrote the role for this actor. Um, and once it kind of hit the stage, they figured it out on the way. And so a lot of the stuff was not necessarily meant to be. So the moral is that there is no meaning. It's just they wanted to make a grounded and good villain, and this is how it kind of manifested.
Mhm.
A good example of the impromptu-ness of the filming was the aforementioned bathroom scene. So in that scene, Arthur Fleck had just killed the college kids and is running through the city and runs into a bathroom, locks the door, and we never see this happen, but that scene in the script is written so that Arthur Fleck can get rid of his gun. He can get rid of the evidence. That is the purpose of that scene.
Huh.
And when they were there on set doing it, or not on set, when they were going through it in the script, when
Oh, it
Joaquin
changed
and
quite a bit.
yeah, when Joaquin Phoenix and Phillips were talking, and Todd Phillips were talking about it, they were just, he was expressing, Phoenix was expressing his concerns about this scene, not playing it or not being as good or whatever. And so he's like, well, come on, let's go to the set. And so they go into into New York, because it was filmed in New York.
Mhm.
Um, and they go to the set, and he sits in the bathroom, and they're in the bathroom for like an hour trying to come up with this scene, trying to figure out how this scene is gonna work, what's gonna suit the movie the best. And finally, after working on it, Todd Phillips played this piece of music that the composer had sent him the night before, and he was just kind of listening to it, and it was supposed to be for the movie, and it ended up being the score for the film.
Mhm.
And like, it was like a click moment, and Joaquin Phoenix did this weird dance kind of routine, and it made its way. And so that whole scene loses the gun. It loses like the purpose of getting rid of evidence to not be associated with this crime,
Mhm.
and turns into this beautiful kind of metamorphosis moment where it's like Arthur Fleck is seeing himself finally. Like, he's literally gotten rid of this mask now, and the Joker has peeked through for the first time. But it also shows like how the filming of this movie was very like, every day you came to the set, it was an open-ended bag of what you were going to get. They said this movie took, I think, about as long to film as it took as long to edit as it did to film, because um because Joaquin Phoenix gave him take after take after take after take of different shit, and every single time it was really good. And so there's just, the Todd Phillips said there's hundreds of different versions of this film that
Mhm.
exist on somebody's hard drive, and
Wow.
that's why we spent forever editing it, is because of how the varying performances by Joaquin.
Mhm.
So that was part of like the research that I did, that I thought it was so interesting, is because that scene is very synonymous with the film, and like, it's a very big moment that people remember, but it was
Mhm.
a moment that was not scripted, was completely impromptu, and completely changed. But that's also like one of the things they said throughout the entire film, is that that's what made this film so good, was that they were able to, every day they came in and they were able to flex with what they were prepping and doing, and fit the movie that they were making. They wrote
Mhm.
it down, and then they felt it out as they made it, which is really interesting, because that's a big risk when you make a movie, and to make one this good, you
Mhm.
know, on that kind of mentality it's a hallmark of good movie makers, and
Mhm.
that's about it. Like, you can't do that unless you know your role, unless you know your character.
Of course, of course. And it does kind of beg the question, to transfer to other DC movies of like, when is this style of movie, or when is this type of like, love and dedication towards, the movie you want to put out, go towards these other DC movies, you know? When are we going to see that in the future? Because there's been a lot of criticism with DC as a whole, in
Yeah,
terms of their live action movies being kind of subpar and not being that great. I think the last good review I had heard of was Aquaman, at the time, and I think Wonder Woman,
it's
right?
mediocre, both of them.
Yeah. So it does beg the question of like, when are these other DC movies going to get some kind of love like this?
I think it's coming. Um,
Mhm.
in that same interview that I watched with Bradley Cooper, like he said, that Todd Phillips came to him, and they had this idea for a universe, a darker universe, DC universe, starting with the Joker. That was in one interview in passing, but then in that interview with Joaquin Phoenix that I watched, he was also talking about, like, he said, this was verbatim. His words were, not verbatim, but in his own words, he said that like if it was Todd Phillips and Joaquin's choice,
Mhm,
they'd probably still be filming right now for the next film or the third film. Like they would have just kept going. But
mhm,
because of the way it is, it's like at the end of this day, you pack up and go home and you are now doing your laundry and taking your kids to school and like you got your life back. But he's like, but if it was just us doing our thing, we would just keep going because we have so many ideas, so many places, and like so many different opportunities that they were eager to express and kind of feel out and see where it went. That it's with I have no doubt that he'll come back to play the Joker again in the
mhm.
sequel and whatever, spins out of all this cuz this is also a weird take for like the beginnings of Batman. Like it's never been this woven quite this way before.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of versions of Batman and the Joker, but never the one where Joker's anarchy causes the death of Thomas and Martha. That's an interesting take for sure.
Yeah,
And
it's very
builds
interesting.
when you can see already where that motivation against the Joker is already like ingrained from childhood. And that's
Mhm,
just a different take on it.
mhm. Now, do you think the what's his name, the new Batman movies are gonna have any sort of tie with I
I
was
don't know.
gonna say
I was
Fletcher.
wondering that too. I'm really curious.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see this kind of Joker, along with the new Batman, which I keep forgetting his name. I forget the
Robert
actor's name.
Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
his
I
name.
think that
Come
Dante
on, we watched a
Folsom
movie
kid.
with him, Devil All the Time, Robert Pattinson,
You're right. I
the
forgot.
evangelical pastor
I'm
that's
sorry. When I saw
banging.
Spider-Man shoot the guy, I just out of my head, out of my head, out of my head.
What are you gonna say,
Oh my
Alf?
goodness.
Couple things.
Oh
I
gosh.
Do you think I was actually going to ask if you guys thought um if you guys thought or what you thought of Joaquin Phoenix reprising his role as a Joker given his bodily condition that he
Oh,
undertook,
I have some
you know?
information on that as well.
Let's hear
Oh,
it.
okay.
I have all uh so to get that role, he did the Christian Bale diet.
Oh,
Ooh.
really?
Yeah.
Apple and some ciggies and water?
Yep.
Or no, coffee. It was coffee, apple, and cigarettes.
Yeah,
Mhm,
so when they were getting ready for filming, they were like it was like there was a lot of production and or pre-production up to the actual like filming.
Mhm,
And in that lead up time, they were going to film in September, and so it's like June, right? So there's like 2 months from the start date that they're going to film, and Joaquin is still like 180 pounds.
mhm.
And he had to and they're like Todd Phillips is like, "So like when do you start doing this thing?" Like you're gonna have to lose like you're we they talked about whether or not they'd lose weight, like, and that in of itself, that weight loss thing was something that Joaquin brought to the table when doing research about mental illness and the medication side effects that come with some of these things, and weight fluctuation was a big
Mhm,
side effect for a lot of these different medications that he was researching. Side note, he's really interesting because in this interview they asked him about this stuff, and like they asked him about the violence in the film and whether or not something like this would how this affects people, stuff like that. And his response to it was, "I'm not going to talk about it on camera. If you want to talk about it off a camera, that's cool, and we'll have an extensive conversation, but the studies show that any mentioning of it in good or bad on media is a net loss and is never good. It's always bad. So I stay away from it and I don't talk about it."
mhm.
And I was like,
Wow.
"Fuck, man. That was so good." Like that was fucking sick. And he sits in his chair like this. He's given like a professional interview and he sits with his knee up. It's he's a weirdo, but it's
Ah,
cool.
dude. No,
But
that's a power move right there.
so but back on track, he was
Mhm,
weight fluctuation thing was something that was brought up because of the medication side effects, and so
Mhm.
he brought this up to Todd Phillips, and he agreed that this is a good idea. And he goes, "Well, how about I just gain a bunch of weight?" He's like, so there could have been a film where Joaquin was just a pudgy, like, doughboy walking
Yeah.
around.
He was more of a penguin Joker than
And he has a neck beard.
Yeah.
He has a neck beard and he walks around with a fucking anime waifu pillow.
But
Oh my
so there
Well,
was
and
that.
dude, hold the
Yeah,
phone.
yeah.
Oh,
I
Okay.
no.
think I
Oh, no.
need to see this alternate reality version of the Joker and see if that particular demographic that I'm kind of roasting would still cling to it to the same degree,
Like the V for
or
Vendetta.
if
Like it would
Yeah.
yeah,
just.
or if it would be like their fucking swan song. They're like, see, somebody understands. I need
Well,
to
it
know.
was about he weighed 180 pounds like
Make him
2 months
300.
2 months before filming began.
Uh-huh.
So
What'd he get down to?
130. So in 2 months he dropped
Damn.
50 pounds.
What's
And
his secret?
that's what the guy
Just
asked
gain
him. They're like, "How do you do that?" Like, and Todd Phillips, one of the director, was talking about it too, and he's like, "Dude, we can get you trainers, like we can get you dietitians and nutritionalists and like and stuff, so like you can do this healthily and right." And he goes, "No," and Joaquin told me, he goes, "I got my own way of doing it." and and so he just ate a fucking apple a day for until filming
Jesus,
started.
man.
And yeah, like that's a commitment on a role that like you got to be you're on a different level and you got to screw loose. Like Christian Bale,
Mhm.
Joaquin Phoenix, they got some screws loose. Well, I understand Joaquin Phoenix cuz he comes from like a cult. His family was his parents, like he was born into a cult. His brothers, his sister was all like that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe I'll do if we ever watch a film with him again, I'll do research on it so I can tell you all about it. But yeah,
Okay.
like
Alfie,
they
pick out another movie, Joaquin
Uh,
Phoenix.
yeah, man. Wasn't he in Signs?
I don't know. Give us a sign if he was.
Melly Gibson,
maybe.
Joaquin Phoenix.
But so
literally.
yeah, but in 2 months he lost 50 pounds.
Damn, that's crazy, man. You heard it here, folks. An apple a day keeps you hired for the movie Joker.
Hey, there he is. I was right. What the fuck? And okay, sorry. This is sorry.
Nah, you're good.
I was going. I went down the Signs rabbit hole, and it has nothing to do with what we're
Oh,
talking about right now. But
there's
wow.
some other cool stuff about this film that I thought was really cool when I was watching and
Mhm.
researching background. Um, when they were writing the film, they actually made a map of Gotham City, a real map that they use, and it wasn't like a crudely like on the back of a napkin map. It was like they had a real artist render out a map of Gotham City, and it's used in the film. You can find it and see it
Ooh.
when they're in the metro station, and whenever they pass a kiosk or anything on the wall that is a map of Gotham, that is the map that the writers and filmmakers used when filming and storyboarding and figuring out the story.
God, that's good
that
attention to detail, man. That's nothing goes undone there. Nothing gets untouched, man. I
well
love it.
there was a point to it too. It was like,
Mhm.
because part of what they want to do, and one of the things that I love, and it's one of the things I love about DC Comics in general, is that they make cities characters. So like, Metropolis looks and feels so much different than Gotham City, and the citizens and the heroes and the villains, they all kind of take on their part of everything. It's all in this complete package. And New York and Marvel is like may as well be the capital of the earth. So
Mhm.
like I like it when cities and stuff have a character, and Gotham in this movie is proclaimed by the filmmakers as a character of the film.
Mhm.
They did a lot of planning and like conceptual work before the filming ever began of how Gotham was going to feel so that you felt like you were in New York because that's what it was based on. It was based on 1980s New York. It was how do you feel like you're in Gotham, but you can be transported to other realms. It's, New York is the land of realms. So like when you're where Arthur Fleck, you know, lives, it feels so much different than where Bruce Wayne lives, you know? But it's still the same city. So how do they go about getting that? How do they accomplish that? And one of the big ones, can you guess it? One of the big ways that they would alter the
The
city,
lighting.
the lighting, but there's a bigger theme in the movie that they
They
use.
would black out windows, less reflective
I think no,
windows.
it's a theme in the movie. They talk about it. It's a big part of the city. It's part of the thing that's happening in the city.
There would be a lot of homeless people around.
There's news broadcasts about it. There were Murray jokes about it on his show.
Thomas Wayne, right?
It's the trash. They talk about the city is overrun with garbage. There's trash everywhere. He
Mhm.
makes there's a the mention of like New York
And it's
City says we
littered
have,
too.
huh?
I s-
What'd you
I
say?
was I said and it's littered too because I was referring to how they call the people trash. They call the Thomas
Damn
Wayne
it.
makes like a garbage people joke.
God damn it.
Bueller.
Fucking
well,
hate you.
Murray makes a joke though of, you know, they say we have super rats. Well, how do you solve that problem? With super
Super
cats. Like
cats.
the trash and the rat problem is a big like motif of the entire movie, and they use it time and again to give you reference of just where everything is happening. Um, so on scenes where Murray or where Arthur is going back to his house, there's like trash piled up on the side of this buildings. When
Mhm.
he's out back of the comedy club and he's kicking the trash and
Mhm.
he's in the alleyway, there's trash everywhere in that scene. But as you get further away from the poverty and you make your way into opulency, there's less of it. And you don't see it as much. And trash is taken care of and not just discarded. There's a cleanliness to everything. There was talks about that and the type of architecture of the buildings where Arthur grows up and lives
Mhm.
versus like when he's tailing his neighbor for the first time and she goes like into the bank, I think it is, and the bank has a completely different look. Like all that stuff was meticulously planned ahead of time. That wasn't just like good film days and good places to get their sets. Like
Right.
that was all part of the plan, like to make the city feel bigger and more alive than just a backdrop. You know what I mean?
Mhm. See, that's cool. I didn't. So the jokes about the rats and all the trash, talk on the news and whatnot completely escapes your mind because you're so enveloped in the talk of like, oh, what's gonna happen? All like Thomas Wayne drama, the Joker drama. It does a good job of like focusing your attention on Joker, but puts in these little like sprinkles of detail that you can pick up on your second time around. Because I did not pick up on that, dude.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be really honest. I did
I didn't
not
pick
pick
up
up
on
on
the
that.
trash stuff till I saw it with Alfie my second time
Uh-huh.
around.
Yeah.
Like I was like I realized that from the in the like that's I think that's actually the first line in the film. Or no, no. The first line, like the first scene is Arthur being chased down or
Yeah, and the
chasing the
sign
kids.
and the
But when he
yeah.
gets into the back to the like changing room, they
Mhm.
have the radio going and it's talking about the trash in the city, the trash
Oh,
problem.
gotcha.
Like it's right there in the very beginning and it
Mhm,
sticks through all the way to the very end.
mhm.
And it's just kind of funny how much it's reflecting a 1980s New York because I think anybody who grew up in 1980s New York could tell you that it was a trashy, dangerous city that was defined by either places of extreme opulency
Mhm.
or watch your back, clutch your purse, and get to where you're going to go because you never know who you're going to see. You certainly don't get on the subways after dark like that lady did with the and the college kids came around. Like that's what makes that scene really believable is that it's real. Like that was something that happened and probably and still does around the world, but it's not an outlandish scene. It's just the outlandish nature of what happens in it.
Yeah.
Which is there anything more you want to talk about? Because I have a I have like the final wrap up. I have something that the final question of the day. I have a final thing.
Ooh.
So
Ooh.
I want you
Okay.
guys to expend all of your thoughts.
So mine isn't more so about the movie, but mine is more just a question regarding this because I find myself bringing up another comparison of the three iterations of this character, right? Same with Spider-Man, where there are three iterations. Which do you guys prefer that's been portrayed on scene of our generation, right? For like Heath Ledger, Jared Leto, or
Jared Leto doesn't
Joaquin
count.
Phoenix, right? Okay, out of the running. Jared Leto, automatically third.
That's
Automatically
his
third.
laugh. You think I'm joking? That's his laugh.
No, I know you're not joking. I know you're not joking. It's
Hey,
those gold
somebody,
teeth,
hey,
dude.
somebody call 911. Corey's choking on something. He's
It's
choking
the
on
terrible
something.
acting of Jared Leto. Quick, get him a lozenge. But so then it becomes a question because Jared Leto is now vetoed out of this,
Here, look.
right? Ooh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Here. Okay, so
Corey's
what
just
we
pulling up a
have
video.
is perfect.
Joker laugh compilation.
This is perfect. This is perfect. This is perfect.
Oh
Look at
no.
this.
Oh no. It's a comparison of all three. Oh no.
It's a
Oh
comparison
no.
of all three.
Oh boy, I can't wait. I was gonna do a Mickey voice, but
Oh boy.
I can't hear anything.
yeah, me neither. Oh, it's muted.
Yeah,
I
it's
think you
muted
muted the
though.
video. Yeah, there it is.
All
What's so
right.
funny? Freak!
I like that one.
Oh, I have to mention this too. Um, so they part of in that scene when he's putting on the makeup,
Mhm.
that was part of the research. So in all the research that Joaquin did, he actually would do his own makeup and in trying to
Oh.
find the character and who Arthur Fleck was. He was on this search and he would put on makeup and do it himself. And they found the way the character looks kind of through that exploration.
Mhm.
And but he sent this picture of just the white. I don't know why I keep doing the face paint, but of just the white on his face, like the
Mhm.
typical Joker.
Right.
And there's something super harrowing. Like that's what they said. There's something super like unnerving about it. And that's the reason they didn't go with it. And it's also the reason they used it in one particular scene, which we just saw. There's that, in this
Yeah,
in
where he's
this
like shirtless towards the end
yeah,
of the movie,
and
right?
it shows that like it looks very creepy. And that was the consensus on that is like it's too creepy to use. So they went with something else.
Go back to it. Let's break that one down. Let's stare at it,
You want
dude.
me to
Let's
go back?
stare into the
Yeah, let's
void.
stare at his little bones.
Yeah, stare into the void. That is pretty fucking unnerving.
You know,
That doesn't look like a Joker movie. That looks
Well, here's the thing,
like
he's also
the
not
a
next
horror
wearing, like,
evolution of the
movie.
Grudge
red
or the
smile.
Ring.
Yeah.
He's not wearing the red smile. Do you think
Yeah,
that's
you're
just,
right.
like, adding to it, right?
He looks like the
It looks like ash faced, like,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
an
he looks like a
enemy in
character
a
out of a
video game
creepypasta come to life.
or that, yeah. I was gonna say like a character out of a video, like it almost looks like a God of War character that just has ash,
Mhm.
like God of War, like Kratos,
Right.
like the white on his kind of
Yeah.
deal. Yeah, it looks
I was gonna say he pulls a
scary.
venom snake, rubs, like
All right, let's skip through these.
Is this a joke to you? I need a machine gun.
Oh, here we go.
Are you sweet talking me?
That's your ruining date night!
This isn't the Joker.
It's so bad.
Terrible.
It's all vocal fry. What the fuck were they thinking, man?
They weren't.
Dude. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I can tell you, man.
I don't even want to watch the rest of that. Here's some behind
Yeah,
the scenes
so we're not.
watching. Yeah,
But
no.
anyway, my question still stands between the two Jokers of our time. Because I'm pretty sure we never grew up with, Jack Nicholson, right? As our Joker, right? Between the two, who would you say is I wouldn't say better, but gives a more convincing performance
Mark Hamill.
as Joker?
That's the correct answer.
Live action Jokers. Mark
I
I
mean,
Hamill,
mean,
de
Mark
facto
Hamill's still
Joker.
alive. I mean,
De
Heath
facto
Ledger
Joker.
isn't even alive anymore. You know
De
what I'm saying? I'm
facto
just being
Joker.
real. Like, no offense to him.
Right,
You know,
but
so if you're
de
asking which
facto
one do you like more?
real life.
Which one do you like more, Joaquin Phoenix or Heath Ledger? I think it's
Oh, okay, that's the question you're asking. Well,
I feel like that's
I think
not
they
a
were
really
both
good
pretty bad. No, I'm just kidding.
this is what I feel like there's a quote by Mark Hamill about the Jokers that I really liked, and it's that I think someone asked him one time, which was like, what Joker do you like the most, like other than yours, like what version of him do you like the most? And
The one in
what
the
he
comics.
said, well, what was interesting is he said that he said he doesn't think that there's any right one way to play the Joker, and that
Mhm.
for every generation and for every whatever, there will be a person who that will embody the character of the Joker in a way that will take on its own form, and that to each form exists in their own right, but none of them outdo or are better than the other. Like
Right.
they all exist in their own kind of continuum without
Mhm.
and I just like that because I feel like that's so true, is that there's never a repeat performance. You don't feel like anyone is trying to be any
I've
other
seen this
Joker.
one.
Yeah, they didn't look at Jack Nicholson and go like, "Well, I gotta be that cartoony bastard." No,
Mhm.
they went completely different. And this one, which I would say is more like Heath Ledger, maybe later on, like you could see it leading to Heath Ledger because it is so much more grounded. But like even still, Heath Ledger's Joker is so different, and
Mhm.
he's kind of the hysterically like evil, like and chaotic, where
Yeah.
this is reason, like this is creation in a way of something chaos. There's a necessity for the chaos in this world. Um, so I just don't think it's a fair comparison. I think they're all fantastic. I really do. Like,
All right, cards for both parties.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yes. That's which one? Heath Ledger or Joaquin
That's it. That's a wrap.
Phoenix?
That's a wrap.
Yes.
It goes back and forth. It comes around. It comes around. That's a wrap.
That's my answer. What do you think?
You're
I mean,
asking
you
me or
are right.
Scott?
You are right. They both have a very different take on them, and I think that's just the direction of how they wanted to go about the Jokers between both movies.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I
Ma-
guess then the
okay.
question has now
Mhm,
become, if you really want to get an answer, which performance did you personally find more enjoyable?
mhm.
Or which one, like what Joker experience do you prefer, or would you watch? Like if I was like, hey, do you want to watch The Dark Knight or do you want to watch the Joker?
I would
And
say
I
Dark
know that
Knight.
that's different because
Hmm.
Corey would say The Dark Knight because Batman's actually in that movie, is
I'd
my
actually
guess.
say the Joker.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
well, I've been
do.
wrong before.
Yeah, when I answered that
Nothing wrong
question in
with
my
four. I
head,
see you
I
guys, but
said the Joker.
Mhm.
Well, I just because The Dark Knight's really good, and it's a Batman story. It's really good,
Mhm.
but it's also like what's so unique about this movie is that it moves. Like it's 2 hours long, and it's about one character. We
Mhm.
don't get a cutaway, you know. We don't get like the here's the B story going on with this other character. We don't get that in this movie. It's all about Arthur. It's all about him.
Mhm.
And you don't need that other thing, but the movie still moves. It keeps your attention and you keep going from scene to scene and it doesn't feel like it slogs at any point. It's with I feel like I can keep taking stuff away from Joker. I guess
Mhm.
it's also been a while since I've watched The Dark Knight. Maybe I should watch that again and then and then tell
Then come
you.
back to the
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 That might be a better choice. Yes.
Yes. No, I'm kind of more in favor to The Dark Knight, actually. Not to say this movie wasn't, enjoyable. It was a really, really good movie. I enjoyed sitting down and actually watching it, and just, being enveloped for the whole movie. But there's something about The Dark Knight that, like, it makes you want to see more of this chaotic evil that, has no answers to it. He moves, like a dog shit in car. He just goes. You know, it doesn't feel like there's an off switch with that Joker, with Heath Ledger, and that's enjoyable to watch. It's pure chaotic fun. And that's something I kind of really enjoy from Heath Ledger's Joker. Outside the whole hospital scene with the button, right?
Well, Christopher Nolan for the Dark Knight trilogy did a lot of comic book reading, especially of like The Long Halloween, um, and Dark Victory, that those Tim Sale comics,
Mhm.
and he incorporated that. There's a scene in The Dark Knight where um, the Joker burns a bunch of cash at the docks, just puts them up in flames. That's an almost one for one rip of a comic of like a still from the comic books, a panel. But
Mhm.
this film, and this leads into the final question, is that this film, in a way, does its own comic book references as well. I mentioned the "I had a bad day" quote while he's sitting on the couch and
yeah.
approaching and talking to the neighbor that didn't ultimately exist. But Scott, what did you take away from the final scene of the movie?
Oh, the scene where he's dancing, right on
Well,
the car.
yeah, he
No, like the
no, no,
the
no, no, the final
from
scene.
Arkham.
He's in the white tiled
Ooh.
hallway and he's walking down and there's the blood steps of he killed the psychiatrist or whatever.
Mhm.
Social worker.
What did you take
Mm.
from that?
I mean, it's seeing the journey and then seeing what he's finally become. It is. I would almost say like a scary realization that this man's basically gone. The man he was is basically gone. If he was ever there, right? And that is one part scary. To realize that, hey, that could happen to like
Okay.
just about anyone.
So you take it
I
literal.
had a bad
Okay.
day,
Alfie, what do
right?
you think of that?
Um, given his track record, if you will,
Mhm.
um, I question whether even that is real. Is this just taking place in his
Okay.
head? Is he did he have some sort of like is it in reality a summary of the events that may have transpired leading up to the city going up in this and all these riots, like is that is this is getting really like I feel like I have a way too uh like
I think
artsy
we're on the same wavelength
view on
about
it,
it.
but is that him being like there is no more Arthur, kind of like what Scott was saying, but it's like a high
Um, Interesting.
it's like a metaphorical manifestation of it in his head where
Hmm.
he's like the Joker gets to run free now and there is no more Arthur. Maybe it's not the social
Interesting.
worker's blood, it's actually Arthur's blood because there is no more Arthur anymore. And I think this also ties into what I was talking about earlier, how like no the people aren't monsters, like there's monsters, but like people are still people and they just did bad things. Um it's it kind of like also shows that you can't get him like that. Like he's pretty much just like a chaotic entity at this point. Like if Batman were to face off with him, it's not like he has a weak point in his mom. Like he doesn't give a shit about his mom. His mom lied to him and he's like, ditch that.
He
Like
killed
that's
her.
no longer my identity, you
Yeah,
know?
he cut ties with it. He basically, cut ties
He
with his past.
literally killed her.
He murdered her.
Well, I think it's one of those things because let me hear what you guys think about this,
Okay.
because this is basically that whole scene when I watched it in theaters first time, and every time I watch it now, my thought goes to I think the book. I wish I had looked it up and gone and done it before this, but the um the book is called I think it's The Man Who Laughs, Joker, The Man Who Laughs, something like that. But
Mhm.
there was also a audio log in one of the Arkham games that was similar in the fashion of how it was constructed, but basically it is this whole story of the Joker's background, where he was in life, and he in this version he was, he was approached by people, he was down on his money, he needed it, he had a family that he was providing for, and so he took this job to repay the debts and to get money, and then he went to Ace Chemicals. That was when he had the fateful encounter with Batman and fell into the vat of acid and became the Joker.
Mhm.
And in this story, in the Arkham games, Joker is telling this to a psychiatrist who works at Arkham Asylum at the time, called Harleen Quinzel.
Mm.
And obviously Harley Quinn, but in the game, it's just a fun Easter egg. But at the end of this story, a gut-wrenching background of this downtrodden man like Arthur Fleck, with a life so concretely set in the city, with motivations so well crafted to become who he is now. And at the end of the interview, he says something like, or at the end of it, Harleen goes, "Oh, that's a good story, Joker, but you told me four different ones last week, you know."
Mhm.
And it's like you get to the end of this story, and then it's just come to realization that it's just this finely crafted manipulation by the Joker. And it's like, it's the Joker, what do you expect? And so I feel like in a lot of ways, that's how this movie ended, of like, he's telling the psychiatrist what happened to him. He's telling the social worker what happened. And it ends the film with him leaving, having killed her, and going, the question becomes, was any of this real? Like
Yeah.
like the girl who was living down the hall that ended up not being real. How much of this is real? How did he shoot three kids, three assailants, and not miss a single shot?
Mhm.
You know, he shot 7 bullets, and that pistol holds 7 rounds. I looked it up. I
Mhm.
checked. That was when I watched that scene in theaters. I went, like, I counted them in the theater, and then I went back and looked up revolvers that had like a 7 round chamber, and they
Mhm.
exist. So it was like, okay, I'll give it. But to hit all 7, especially with a kid running away down the subway block,
Mhm.
having never fired a gun before in your life, that's one of those scenes where you said it earlier, Alfie. You get to a point of like, you're watching, like, it's too crazy, it's too wild, it's too perfect, it's too everything is too falls into place.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so where those details are a little too perfect or a little fuzzy, or you know
Yeah,
everything
the
just works
story
out
can
perfectly.
advance and the stakes can raise.
Exactly. It's just all
Right.
part of that manipulation. Are we just the psychiatrist? Are we the social worker the whole
If so,
movie?
we got a fucking Dark Souls screen at the end. Because we died.
I think the answer to whether or not that's the case comes with the second movie. You know, because if they keep going where none of that is a
He
thing,
just
right?
keeps telling origin stories.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like if the next movie, like he breaks out of the asylum and goes and does whatever in the city, then we know, all right, it was all made up. But if they use part of it, or in true masterclass Joker fashion, this would be the way that I would do it, is you take snippets. You choose the things you want to carry over to reality, and then you choose the other things that got blown up from the story. So, you know, like Wayne's parents dying in that, you know, in this theater thing, maybe the protests, you know, bringing all these things, bringing details together, and then building a world that you could see would influence the caricature that the Joker would make to tell this story. I don't know. It's a way of looking at it, you know.
Well, it's a good way to end a movie like this, I'd say, just because it leaves it up to your imagination. I'm making you question, like, oh, what's this? What's that? Is this real? Him being such an
Mhm.
unreliable narrator, to end the movie this way, I think is probably the best way to end this movie, right?
Agreed.
Just leaves you wanting more.
All right, so out of maniacal clown laughs, out of 10 of those, how many do you give this movie?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna give this the Mark Hamill 10 out of 10.
Wow. A perfect Mark Hamill 10 out of 10.
I mean, it
Alfie.
really is probably the
I'll
best.
give it a Heath Ledger 9 out of 10. You know.
Bud.
Well, oh my bad. Heath Ledger's Australian, so I got to give it a 6 so that it looks like a 9.
Shut up.
Oh my god.
Oh, man.
R.I.P. Norm.
Oh no, you're looking at the. Oh, goodness. Oh goodness. We're looking up the Batman series, the TV
Michael
series.
Keaton, man, the man, the myth, the also man who
That was
transcended the
right.
Marvel and DC universes.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
Cesar Romero.
Yeah, I give it a solid like 9.5
Mhm.
Cesar Romero bombs. Like, do you remember those? Or is that like a reference that's too far out?
Ooh, I don't
The-
remember his left. I remember
No,
the
I don't. I've never
Nah,
seen
not
it
his
before in
laugh,
my
Jackson.
but
life.
the Batman, let's see, Adam West.
I have like brief pictures of like Jack Nicholson, but that's it.
Bro, this is like
What is
one
this Mega Man bomb doing?
this is like one of the big scenes from the movie. Dude, this scene is ridiculous.
Long bomb. Long cheers.
Everyone, flee for your lives!
So that's what I'm talking about. I give it 9.5 of those. 9.5
Well,
out of
what
10.
happens to these two ladies? They're just gonna keep eating?
No,
Yeah, dude,
he
they
ends
paid
up
for the meal.
running down the docks with the bomb in hand with the fuse going, and like he runs through the same scene like 6 times, but
Uh-huh.
like every time he runs past like something like progressively worse. Like he runs past like like someone
A
walking a
basket of
dog.
puppies.
Yeah, and then he runs past again, and there's like a child in a crib, and he runs, and then I think he just throws it into the water, like,
Oh my goodness,
like-
Batman. Oh my goodness, Batman.
But yeah, that was so we watched The Joker. I think it gets a 9.5
Mhm.
grand total scoring from us. Let's see. I guess I could put this on. It's gonna be so sudden, so fast. No fading until the program gets fixed. So let's redo that then. We watched The Joker, and we gave it a resounding 9.5 laughs out of 10. Or if it was
we
Will
gotta
Smith.
draw the hand.
Yeah.
Or we gotta draw the mouth on the back of our hand.
Oh yeah. If you and we should probably start doing all this stuff in the beginning of the podcast where anybody might be listening, but if you want to catch Scooty Scott Borgstrom to the right of me, if you want to catch him during the week, he streams over at twitch.com/ScootyWins. Mutt Hardcastle is where you can find Alfredo. Maybe one day when he does that. It's not
He
yet.
said soon.
So
He said soon.
that's a lie.
Coming soon. Well, I gotta, I got wait. I gotta get my capture card.
Oh yeah. And you're already here for the Paradise Podcast Network. You can find the show on Spotify if you search PPN or the Paradise Podcast Network. You can also find us on Twitter at the Parapod Network and over on YouTube at the Paradise Podcast Network. Next week, it is still September, so we're still in the throes of superhero September. This is also on HBO. I didn't know if you guys knew this. This is also considered Batman month because Batman is this month. But Scott chose this week's video, or this week's movie, The Joker. I chose last week's video, Superman 1978. That means for this coming week, Alfredo, you have the reins to choose our torture.
I'm gonna pick a fucking bad one.
Okay.
Well, we've seen a lot of good movies recently, so I mean, I think it's due.
What would be a bad superhero movie?
Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, it's pretty bad.
And I love Ryan Reynolds, but
Look at that.
Is that what we're gonna watch?
dude, it's just not
Okay,
worth
thank
it. It's not worth it. Sorry,
seen it
Ryan
once?
Reynolds.
Never
I've
again.
never seen
Never
it
again.
actually.
I've seen it once.
Oh,
never
but you know
again.
what's a good superhero movie with Ryan Reynolds in it?
Oh,
Deadpool?
Free Guy. I'm just kidding. Yeah, man. Yeah, let's watch Deadpool.
Deadpool 1 or 2?
Yes. Talk about both.
I'll probably watch both anyways.
I want to talk about the continuity between Deadpool 1 and 2.
Oh,
And for
I didn't know
additional
about that.
homework, you gotta watch every single
X-Men?
X-Men movie.
no, you gotta watch
I'm
one
gonna do that
specifically
at
with
some
Ryan
point.
Reynolds and Deadpool.
I gotta do
Ooh,
that.
okay, actually, I want a coin toss.
Okay.
I want a coin toss
Pass it up.
between.
Pass it up.
I want a coin toss between Deadpool and Logan.
Okay. I got a coin here. I got a coin.
All right, so go
Alright,
get
you
your
guys
cat,
handle
and I'll
it.
choose heads or
Alright.
tails, and you're gonna
Alright.
throw your cat in the air, and
I
we're
got
gonna.
And if I fucking dome her, it's Logan. All right, let's say Deadpool's heads and Logan is tails.
Alrighty. It is tails.
Logan.
Yep, it is Logan.
That's
I'm
good.
allergic to some bullshit.
I was
You
secretly
didn't fucking
hoping
do
that.
the thing.
I don't
man.
care, that's what
People,
we're going with.
Usually they catch it and then they go like
Who
that. You
cares?
just
See you next
fucking-
week.
I haven't seen Logan, so that's what we're gonna watch.
Me neither.
All right,
Me
all
neither.
right, all right. I love Logan.
We've all
Really?
seen Deadpool. We haven't seen Logan, alright?
I haven't seen Deadpool. I waited to watch it with my friends.
Well, shut
Just kidding.
up.
Okay, bye.
Just kidding, Yeah.